Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, folks, obviously the conversation pieces that we've been talking about for the last couple of days have had to be about the Green Bay Packers. Why? Well, obviously we know it has to do with the Micah Parsons trade. Obviously it also has to do with the fact that we're getting set to play the Packers here in literally a week from today. And I was not expecting on making another episode today. But I saw a report that, as you can tell from the thumbnail image, you can tell from the title, completely changed my viewpoint. And it has everything to do with Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears. And why is that the case? Here's the reason why. Recent reports have come out that before the Lions actually hired John Morton to be the new offensive coordinator, that Ben Johnson, in essence, tried his dead level best to steal Morton and add him to his own staff. Yeah, you heard that right. Ben Johnson tried to be a swiper from Dora the Explorer and tried to, in essence, swipe John Morton away from the Lions so that way he could come and be on his own staff. Now, the reason why I call this, Johnson once again trying to screw over the Lions is because Johnson did so after Campbell made the offer already to John Morton. And let's understand something here. Whether or not Johnson knew about Dan Campbell putting this offer already out to John Morton, that's irrelevant. And I'm going to tell you why. Number one, chances are that because of the fact that, coaches are in a pretty small circle and they do talk quite a bit, and obviously news being what it is, it's like, hey, the Lions are interested in this person, the Lions are interested in that person. It gets reported all over the place, whether it's the NFL Network, whether it's Twitter, whatever the case might be, ESPN, whatever have you. The point of the matter is that even if that was not the case, which we already know it was, the point of the matter is that Johnson already knew that with him departing from the Lions to become the Bears' offensive, head coach, he already knew that the Lions were going to be looking for his replacement. It's just natural. You leave, now you've left an open void, you've left a vacancy in that offensive coordinator position. So the Lions are going to want to find somebody to fill that void. Well, who would make the most damn sense to bring in? Why not the guy that was the mastermind? Why not the guy that was the brains behind everything as far as working with Goff to help build this offense along with Ben Johnson? Because again, as I've said before, Johnson was only 1/3 of the total brain trust that actually put this offense together back in 2022. Goff was another third of it, and Morton was the other third. But as we've come to find out, Morton was very instrumental in putting together the formations, putting in the language, understanding how the offense was supposed to be ran from a schematic viewpoint. So, it would stand to reason that, hey, you just lost Ben Johnson. He's now become the head coach of the Bears. You now need a new offensive coordinator. Well, gee, the most likely candidate would be the other person, the other coach that helped build that offense as a coach back in 2022, which was John Morton. Not only did Dan Campbell know that, but Ben Johnson knew that. And since Ben Johnson was also building his own coaching staff in Chicago, which included he needed to get an offensive coordinator for himself, now you have competing interests here. Now you have Ben Johnson who's wanting to get his own offensive coordinator, and obviously Dan Campbell is wanting to get his. Well, I find it kind of interesting that, hey, rather than trying to find somebody else, or I don't know, maybe making Antoine Randall L., the guy that you also poached from us, who was the, wide receivers coach, why would you not have him be the offensive coordinator? You made him your assistant head coach and wide receivers coach. Wouldn't be too far to stand to reason that you could have made him your offensive coordinator. But no, Ben Johnson specifically wants to go after John Morton. That to me is a rather interesting set of circumstances. Because again, you have to think about it here. If Ben Johnson, as I have continually stated over, the last 6-7 months, was not the actual mastermind of actually building the offense, he was literally just a part of it, why then would he want John Morton? Why would he want to bring him in? Could it possibly be that because Johnson knew that bringing in Morton was going to help him out, because all Johnson did was took the pieces, took the information, took the scheme that was already there, and he ran with it? What better way to quote-unquote implement the offense that you yourself ran in Detroit but was not totally responsible for building to then copycat that offense and then bring it to Chicago? What better way to do that but then by bringing in the guy that helped you do it in the first place back in Detroit? And again, I find it rather interesting that Johnson specifically went after Morton after Campbell had already offered him the offensive coordinating job. You know what that tells me? That tells me that Johnson wanted Morton to not only screw the Lions over out of a potential offensive coordinator, but he also wanted to do it to implement a shortcut of his own while installing the offense that he was going to run in Chicago, which is based a lot off of what he did here in Detroit. Regardless of what Bears fans want to say, a lot of the basic schemes, a lot of the basic principles, a lot of the basic concepts, they all come from when Johnson was here in Detroit. The reason why I know that is because Tyson Bagent, who fits very, very similarly to what Jared Goff is here in Detroit, outperformed freaking Caleb Williams even in the Bears' own preseason games. It's kind of interesting how Tyson Bagent, the second year, backup quarterback for the Bears, is performing either on a level or a better level than their own starting quarterback. That to me is rather interesting. So based upon what's been going on in the preseason, and now based upon the fact that we now know that Johnson tried his dead level best to get Morton to come be a part of his own coaching staff, it once again reiterates that Johnson, ever since he got the call from Chicago, has been trying to screw the Lions over in every possible manner he could by either trying to steal away former players, trying to steal away coaches, or, as we also have been knowing, trying to copy everything he could from the Detroit Lions. Because you have to think about it here. Johnson wanted to make sure that he had the brains behind the schematic influence and behind the concepts and everything else that the offense had to be on his offensive, game planning committee. He wanted to make sure that that was there to help his transition in Chicago, much the same way that, John Morton did when he helped out Johnson and also Goff in Detroit in 2022. This revelation that I'm talking about shows that even from the very beginning of when Johnson left to go to Chicago, he has been scheming of ways to screw the Lions over any way he could. Because let's go back to when, that's right, the Lions lost the game against the Commanders. That was late December, early January. Well, the reason why I bring this up is because while there's no official word that Johnson had offered the offensive coordinator job to John Morton in Chicago, it is very likely that that is exactly what he did. Why? Because you have to take a look at who's the actual offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. It's a guy by the name of Declan Doyle. Now, why do I bring up Doyle's name? The reason I bring it up is because you want to know when Doyle officially became the offensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears. He became the offensive coordinator on January 26th. You want to know when the Lions made John Morton their offensive coordinator? It was 4 days later, January 30th. it would stand to reason that since we know that Johnson offered or wanted Morton to come and be on his staff, that he likely offered the offensive coordinator job first to Morton, and when Morton turned him down and probably told him that Campbell had already given him that job prior to this, that's then why he went with Doyle. And it makes sense why Johnson wanted Morton, other than, the fact that he was obviously a big part of implementing all the schematic parts and all the conceptual parts of the Lions offense. Because let's understand the difference between Doyle and Morton. First and foremost, Doyle is a young buck. And when I mean he is a young buck, he is a really young buck. Doyle is only 28, 29 years old. He's younger than I am. I'm 31. He's now the offensive coordinator of the freaking Chicago Bears. He's one of the youngest coaches in a heavy, or high position in the NFL, if not the youngest. Well, let's understand something here. If you take a look at Doyle's experience over the last couple of years, he's not really got a whole lot of experience to his name. The job that he had prior to being the offensive coordinator of the Bears was the tight ends coach for the Broncos. Now, wait a minute here. Where do I know this from? Oh, that's right. John Morton was the passing game coordinator for the Broncos the same years that Doyle was the tight ends coach, 2023 to 2024. So, they both came from the exact same team. Morton, who is nearly twice the same age as Doyle, also has way more experience and had been an offensive coordinator both in college and in the NFL. So not only would Morton's expertise completely, absolutely just dwarf anything Doyle had, but on top of that, he knows the type of offense that Johnson wants to run because, as I've already stated, he was there when it was being implemented. All the schematical understanding, all the language, all the concepts, all that stuff comes directly from Morton because not only has Campbell said it, but Morton himself said it, that he had a very heavy hand in having that stuff put in. So, it would definitely then stand to reason that Morton would have been Johnson's number one choice for the offensive coordinator gig in Chicago. Well, think about it. Campbell puts the offer in first to Morton, so then now Johnson has to scramble. He has to find somebody to fill in. He has to settle for somebody else. Well, what better option than to go with a guy that's worked with Morton for the last 2 years and also under the mentor of Morton in Sean Payton. Guy has the same background as far as, hey, you know what? He worked under Morton or worked with Morton for 2 years, and he worked under Morton's mentor in Sean Payton, because Sean Payton and John Morton have worked twice together between their time with the New Orleans Saints and with the Denver Broncos. So yeah, I'm telling you this right now. Johnson definitely wanted Morton to be his offensive coordinator, but because Campbell had put the offer into him first, that was the reason why Johnson couldn't steal him away. Because let's understand something here. Had Campbell not gotten that offer in first, I would be willing to bet you money that the Browns would have probably announced that Morton would have been their offensive coordinator. And then the Lions would have had to figure somebody else out. Maybe John Gruden, I don't know. But the point of the matter is that it's very interesting that, we now know that the Bears tried to get Morton, but it came after the offer that Campbell had put in. And it's very interesting that Doyle worked on the exact same staff that Morton worked on for those 2 years while he was with the Broncos. That's very, very interesting to me. And in this case, the coincidence is way too big to overlook. The point of the matter is that Johnson wanted Morton not only to help him in his transition with the offense in Chicago and to help him in terms of his head coaching career, but he also wanted to screw over the Lions yet again. Because think about it, this isn't the first time that Johnson has screwed the Lions over. Because, that's right, when Johnson left, he took 2 coaches with him. I already stated Antoine Randall as their assistant head coach and their wide receiver coach. But he also took J.T. Barrett, the quarterback's coach. The assistant quarterback's coach, because Mark Brunell is the quarterback's coach. And then, once Johnson gets there, what do? They start bringing in former Lions because, that's right, what was one of their big trades this offseason? They traded for freaking, the left guard, Jonah Jackson. They traded for him. And they already have DeAndre Swift there. So again, what you're seeing here is that Ben Johnson, at every single step of the way, has tried to screw the Lions over by either one, taking away people that the Lions already had or trying to bring in, or then trading for people that already knew exactly what he was trying to do. At this point, the coincidences are just way too many. It's a fact. You trade for Jonah Jackson. You steal away Antoine Randall and JT Barrett. You then try to also poach or swipe John Morton from the Detroit Lions. I'm sorry. That is more than just coincidence. That is an established pattern of a guy trying to screw the Lions over every single possible chance he could. And yeah, you know what? I understand Johnson's wanting to build the best coaching staff he possibly could. But you cannot deny that every single event that I just brought up, all of the connections that it has back to the Detroit Lions, it's rather interesting that he keeps trying to go after former or current Detroit Lions players or coaches that have been there. And think about this as well. The funny part about it is that if Johnson was such the brilliant offensive mind that everybody wants to claim that he is, why in the hell would he go after Johnny Morton? Why would he want him? Because if Ben Johnson is supposedly this great offensive mind that was the entire reason why the Lions offense ran, why would he want John Morton now? Why would he seek him out? Why would he have him or want to have him on his coaching staff? Could it possibly be, as I've stated for weeks, if not for months, that Ben Johnson was not the reason why the Lions offense was as successful as it was? He was merely one part of a large engine, and when he left, he realized, oh my God, I no longer have the pieces that I'm used to having. I don't have Goff. I don't have Gibbs. I don't have Monty. I don't have St. Brown. I don't have Jamo. I don't have Laporta. I also don't have the guy that helped build this offense when I was here. So literally, Johnson's now on his own. So what does he do? He starts trying to put as many pieces back together as he possibly can to make things easier for himself. Because Johnson himself realizes that he is not the reason the Lions offense was the way it was. He, again, was one cog in a very, very large engine. So to me, it's like, okay, the point that Johnson made by trying to steal away Morton shows exactly what I've been saying for months. Johnson has not only been trying to copycat the Lions on every single level possible, but he's been trying to screw them over by trying to take or swipe as many possible resources that the Lions could have gotten or had. So again, it just adds further to the entire storyline and narrative. Johnson has always been out to screw the Lions ever since he left to become the Bears head coach. And this is, I would say, the final nail in the coffin, because when you find out something like this, it's like, oh, so from day one, you've been out to try and screw the Lions over in every possible facet you could. Because when you try to take away our new offensive coordinator, a guy that, oh, by the way, if you really were as good as you were as an offensive genius, why would you seek him out? Why would you want him on your offensive squad? Isn't everything supposed to be about you and your offense? Why would you seek out the guy that helped you build the offense? Maybe it's because you realize that now without Goff and now without him, you're all on your own, buddy. And oh, you don't have the same talent profile in the players that you have to make it work. So you want to try and find any shortcut you can to make things easier for yourself. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me how that makes no absolute sense whatsoever. You can't, because it makes total 100% sense. But anyway, folks, I just wanted to talk about this because, again, this is big news. Even though some people might not think it's big news, it absolutely is big news. And I had to talk about it. But having said that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. If you also like the content and you have not yet subscribed, I hope to gain your subscription. And if you just subscribed and have not yet had a chance to do so, or you subscribed in the past and forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all, please, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Hope y'all are doing well. Hope y'all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.